Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. When I think about my favorite couple therapy experts, Dr. Stan Tatkin is one of the first names that comes to mind. I've read several of his books, I've attended several of his trainings, and this will be the third time I am hosting him on Super Psyched. Stan's work has changed my life and has been instrumental to the field of psychotherapy. And his expertise spans various areas of how we love, including the neurobiology of love and relationships. As you might imagine, there's a lot of terrain to cover, so on this episode, I thought we'd talk about love hacks and a bit about attachment styles. Whether or not you're familiar with attachment styles, I'm confident you'll come to have a better understanding of them and that this episode will delight you and be very useful. So, without further ado, a hearty welcome back to one of my all-time faves, Dr. Stan Tatkin. Dr. Stan Tatkin, who has asked me to call him Stan. Welcome back to Super Psyched.
Welcome back, my friend, too. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. I was just recalling in 2012 when I was a newly minted therapist. I was at a couples conference and one of my friends, a very senior and capable therapist, had just come back from your training at lunch and she was glowing. And from that point on, I just became such a fanboy of your work. And it may be normal to you, but to me, a lot of the stuff that you generate, it addresses these itches that are so hard to scratch and things that seem invisible. And then you shine a light on them and suddenly, oh my gosh, that's what it is. And the name to tame is the principle that seems to be a big part of what you've done. It's like you've created a taxonomy of all the stuff that seems to reside in dark closets. So that's how I see you.
Thank you. Dark closets. Gee, I wonder what's in my closet.
We all have them, skeletons. And then you pick them up and you say, hey, let's name it. Let's do something about it. And let's find a way to wire ourselves to each other in spite of these.
Yeah. We were talking before the show about being fanboys ourselves, stand on the shoulders of others and how to integrate, hopefully, those great people and do them right. And then find a way to integrate all that stuff, which really is what PACT is. PACT is an integration of several different approaches, and it's a polytheoretical approach. So it's not reinventing the wheel, it's taking different wheels that have already been invented and putting them together with an ethos. And the ethos is that in a free and fair union of equals, shared power, shared authority, there must be social contracts that ensure fairness, justice, and mutual sensitivity, or they won't last. And so that's basically secure functioning. Secure functioning, as we're calling it, is a series of social contracts that protect partners from each other and everybody else, but also gives them a sense of purpose and vision so that they're able to move through time as a team. And so that's where we're headed. And we gather all the tools that work and that we research and find that they work. They don't, we throw them out to get to that end. Secure functioning couples, team, power couple that is seeing this properly and not doing what most every couple does, which is just flock into it blind.
So important. I love the idea that it's a polytheoretical perspective and that you try things out and see what works.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it's gone. And one of the things I learned from the dean of the Stanford School of Design is that quantity generates quality. The more ideas you have, the better the outcome. But I'm also thinking, speaking of polytheoretical, is a conversation I recently had with the pioneer of research in psychological safety, Dr. Amy Edmondson out of Harvard Business School. It seems like everything that you do is in some ways related to increasing psychological safety.
Yes.
And as we address some of the hacks that we're going to talk about today, to increase our wired for loveness. What is one of your favorite ways to increase psychological safety, which is basically safe being ourselves and safe to do belly flops and have do-overs and things like that? What are some of your favorite tips to increase psychological safety?
Well, of course, I'm going to think through the lens of couples since that is my specialty. And safety and security is the number one thing that has to be taken care of. Otherwise, partners will fight and partners will not be able to do business. There's no way to take off and be more than you think you could be as a team, as a couple, if you're weighed down by threat of any kind, perception of threat. And that is the major problem. If we don't understand that we have to structure and organize our relationship together as the creators of this thing that doesn't exist in the real world except in our heads, if we're the architects of this thing called a relationship, we have a responsibility to build it the way we want it to be and not just assume it's going to build itself. It doesn't. And that's one big solution to danger, is to have a structure, a culture. You're building a society of two. How are we going to work together and be effective and honor the idea that we are completely two different, annoying, burdensome people who are disappointing? No problem. How are we going to serve? Well, we have to have a shared mission, shared purpose, a reason for being. It can't be love. It can't be emotion because emotions come and go. Purpose has to do with things we decide must be done or must never be done. So say us both. We drink the Kool-Aid and we collaborate on what that is. And then we cooperate by following through. This is always what's protected us in groups. There is nothing else. We have to believe in something greater than ourselves. In this case, the relationship that we co-created, along with the principles that we made up, that makes our lives better because we decide what is good, what is best, or what is right. And then we stick to it. That protects us from each other and makes sure that we don't have unnecessary wars with each other, right? It's not rocket science. You would do that if you started a dance troupe or if you started a business or you wanted to win in the Olympics. You'd have to have a purpose. And the vision is, I'll win, or we will win, or we will make money, or we will survive, or we will succeed. Without that, people fight. This seems to be the human condition. Without a central purpose, we look at our differences, not how we're saying, not how we agree, but how we disagree. And so safety and security starts top down with the gods, the two people that are creating this. And they better create it thoughtfully because kind of get what you pay for. So that's the first tip. Organize, decide what this is, make it up like everything else. Dream, but make sure you dream the same thing. You know, we're guided by images. We're guided by big ideas. So this is a big idea. Don't skimp on it. So an example of this purpose, we are the most important people in this room and in any room. We're the insiders. Everyone else is the outsider. We live to serve each other. And in this way, everything that's below those ideas have to follow. This is sort of our ethos. This is our why we're doing this. And then we go from there.
This is absolutely brilliant. One of the things that Amy told me is that the most innovative companies are the ones with the greatest amounts of psychological safety. And what you're describing is an innovative couplehood in a way where there's something higher, something bigger than ourselves that exists, and it's co-created. What are some examples of some tenets?
We have each other's backs at all times, no exceptions. Even if I think you're wrong, I'm with you. And then I'll give you notes afterwards. First thing I do is, let's get them if you're complaining about somebody. And the second thing, when things calm down, is I will give you the real truth, the notes, but I'm on your side. We protect each other in public and private. I'm responsible for having not protected you in public and private if you say so. It doesn't matter what I say, it matters what you say. So in this game, we're in each other's care. I have to ensure your ongoing felt sense of safety and security. You don't. I have to ensure yours. You have to ensure mine. It works better. And this way, it's a team approach. If you feel hurt and I think you have no cause, it doesn't matter. If you feel hurt, I did something and I apologize. So it's a whole different way of working and thinking than we're accustomed to in life, especially in families, that actually is pro-relationship and pro-self at the same time. Very hard to do under stress. We tend to be pro-self only. And that leads to fighting. That leads to being adversaries. As soon as I talk only about what I care about and I'm not thinking about what you care about, you see me as an adversary and you will start to take care of your interests as well. And that's how we are as human beings. And we very easily go to war if we feel threatened. Not as good at love as we are at war. And so we have to understand that we have to organize and make agreements with permission to enforce before we try to do anything. Otherwise, somebody's going to say, who died made you my boss. So this is a team approach because we want to win. We want to survive this life. We want to be awesome. In a world that's dangerous and unpredictable and uncaring, we have a social contract where we have what the world doesn't provide: safety and security at all times, love, affection, romance, if that's our jam, if that's a principle that we are going to put in place. All these things that are necessary for us to just breathe easy, because interpersonal stress, and this is with marriages or relationships that are conflicted, is a killer. Interpersonal stress, you live shorter life, you're more prone to illness, physical, mental, and you're not going to be happy. So most of us don't realize how many resources we're using on a daily basis because we are feeling either insecure or unsafe in our primary relationship. Once those are taken off the table, that's when people soar. Now you have the resources to be creative, to think, and to be able to move about and be yourself because you've designed this relationship to accommodate that. It's a design issue.
And so it's funny because I was talking about the School of Design at Stanford, and here you're talking about design. One of the ways I conceptualize couplehood, and I love both the title of the book and the book itself, In Each Other's Care. The idea of in each other's care is just one of the most important concepts I've ever heard. But I like thinking of as co-pilots flying through various weather conditions,
Yes.
possibly flying into a mountain if we do something reckless. And I'm wondering, on that note, what if your partner is about to do something reckless or has done something reckless that is profoundly deleterious to the person or to someone else? We can't just rubber stamp it, I'm guessing. When it comes to psychological safety, I would think that it would be very important for us to be able to say, hey, don't do that, or hey, you kind of screwed up there. Let's talk about how we fix it and what we might do next time. What are your thoughts on that?
And let me go back again to the idea of principles or tenets. These are personally held moral, ethical beliefs of what is right or good or best. And I own it for myself, and you need to own it for yourself. If you agree, if you don't, then we have more talking to do. We have to buy into these principles because we are expecting each other to do it when it's the hardest thing to do. And if you're not planning for your devils, only your angels, you're in for big surprises. And so when we come up with principles of behavior, how we're going to do business, how we're going to comport ourselves, and what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're expected to know that these things we will do, remember purpose-centered principles, because they must be done, not because I feel like it. Therefore, that's a good life. It will be done. It doesn't matter if I hate you. It doesn't matter if I'm not attracted to you. I have made a commitment to myself to uphold this union that we've co-created, to stick to the principle, even though it's the hardest thing to do in the moment. And that's going to be true safety and security. That's the truest that you can possibly hope for.
What are the principles that you and Tracy have put into place, and how have they worked for you?
Well, our relationship comes first. It's at the very, very top. And so everything below it must agree. Therefore, everything we do has to be good for both of us. If it's not good for both of us, we bargain. We negotiate to make the other person whole so that we're able to move in lockstep without looking back and litigating unfairness. And so we are constricted to win-win outcomes. And win-win outcomes, given our differences, may not be thing for thing. It could be bargaining, which some people might think is transactional, but on a moral reasoning level, it's higher than transactional because we're doing it to serve a higher purpose, which is to be together instead of separate, be together instead of going one direction, the other person goes the other direction because we're different. So we find a way to be pro-self and pro-social at the same time where nobody can lose. Because if one person loses, the other person's going to pay for it. It is like a three-legged race. In a three-legged race, you can't move without working together. You wouldn't win. You wouldn't go anywhere. You may fall because you're not cooperating with each other. You're not collaborating with each other. And that's a fact. Nobody to blame but yourselves, right? That team's not going to make it. So understanding how teams work, a team of equals with equal power and equal authority, there has to be a regard given to two generals, to each other, to bosses, to executives, with the formalities they're due, because you're with a stranger, you're not with family. And we tend to regress, we tend to project, we tend to do all sorts of things and imagine we're back in our family origin. And that's a mistake. Two strangers coming together based on terms and conditions, deal or no deal. That's the way it should be. And that allows for happiness through the lifespan as we go through changes. We're constantly updating, shaping this clay, unshaping clay to our desire, sort of a bespoke relationship tailored to us.
There's so many things that I'm thinking as you're saying this, Stan. As usual, our conversation is stimulating multiple thoughts, and I'm thinking of these four seemingly different bodies. I'm thinking of my wife, I'm thinking of the Beastie Boys, I'm thinking of the Quakers, and I'm thinking of the 1980s U.S. hockey team, and I'll unpack that. One of the ways that my wife absolutely, positively won me over was when we were deciding to live together. We hadn't gotten engaged yet, and we lived in very different places, and we were trying to figure out like where we would live. And she just looked at me and said, unless both of us are happy, neither of us is happy. And I thought that was amazing.
This whole business of making agreements, people will complain often that their partner isn't holding to the agreements. People have varying levels of agreements. But there's only two reasons why somebody won't hold to an agreement. One is the agreement was made very poorly. And that's the main reason. That's most everybody. It wasn't done correctly. And both partners didn't buy into the agreement. Why is it good for me and you? Why is that good for us, the union? The other reason is the bad faith factor, which is not common. So most of the time, it's because people don't know how to create these principles. I have to choose this based on a good. I want this, even though I know I'll be giving other things up. Every time we make a choice, we lose things. There is no possibility to not lose things. So making the choice is self-governing because I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing it because I'm afraid you'll be upset with me. I'm not afraid that if I don't do it, you'll leave me. I'm doing it because I believe this is the best thing we could do with each other. So that has to be vetted and has to be challenged by partners who are going to get on board with a big idea that they're expecting to hold to so that they actually don't have a reason to fight. They have a policy, a set of policies. They have an understanding that works for both of them that they both believe in. Otherwise, again, it won't be worth anything when one or the other doesn't feel like it.
Wow. So now to add to that laundry list of seemingly disparate entities, I'm just going to knock them really quick, but I'm going to add to it. Benjamin Franklin said something to the effect of, we must work together or hang separately. And yes. I think about the Beastie Boys. They're one of the longest running bands that remained whole. And one of the reasons they remained whole is because all three of them had to agree to a song. If two of them thought it was a good idea and one of them didn't, it was gone. That's why they lasted and they remained buddies. And they somehow knew this. The Quakers, I think, have to hear each other out and kind of come to a collective decision. Very difficult. And then I think about the 1980s Olympic hockey team, which was profoundly inferior to the USSR, but they won because they were such a cohesive unit of folks. And the coach, at least if I understand it correctly, in a brilliant manner said, there are tenets. The team comes first.
Nobody's more important than the other. Nobody's more entitled than the other to anything. Everything's fair and square. And if it isn't fair and square, there will be a problem in the team. The team will suffer. So that's why it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. I can't let you lose because that'll blow back on me. There's no other way that will happen. So I have to think of you and me at the same time, or you'll confuse me as an enemy.
And then we'll be living in our amygdalas and fear and anger show up. Wrong part of the wrong part of the limbic system for that. Let's talk about some quick and easy fasteners that might bring people closer together.
I think co-sleeping, if you can do it, and there's not a problem with sound, not a problem with sleep apnea, which has to be treated, or, snoring or restless leg, I think it works very well for most. When we co-sleep, we actually co-regulate our sympathetic nervous systems through the night, and is something that kids need. They need a transition, separation, going to sleep at night. It's a little like death, or even nursery rhymes speaking to that. And so why don't we transition with each other? Why don't we close the day together and then go into the sleep together and then start the day together and launch each other? So if you can do that, even if you are at opposite ends of the spectrum, the circadian rhythm spectrum, you can actually synchronize them. Easier for a late night person to synchronize with an early bird than an early bird.
That's me. Everything you're saying, I'm tripping. Okay, you go. I'm sorry.
I've been a night person my whole life, but now I get sleepy at 7 because I coordinated my sleeping with Trace. So we go to bed together and go to sleep together. And then we have a routine in the morning. And if people do that, you might find your day goes better. Your sleep is 100%. Better. Your dreams are better. That's one. The other is, I think it's important to tether throughout the day. And so we have a thing where we do loving, romantic, affectionate, appreciative things for each other throughout each day. And of course, it's as you like it, right? How does she want it? And we do that because we can. And we do it because we think it enhances quality of life. And of course, since it's purpose-centered, if we're angry with each other, it still has to happen. We have another one, by the way. We can go to bed angry, but we have to at least touch toes. And this has a biological component to it because when we touch, it sends an unequivocal message to the other person of friendliness. And it signals, I may be angry, but we're okay. And on an existential level and a health level, that is all we need. When we fight or when there's a breach, is a signal that we're okay. I hate your guts right now. And now we can do our day because we have a very primitive part of ourselves based on the earliest experience of dependency, that if there's a rift, our lives are in danger. The relationship may not exist tomorrow, and that creates an existential crisis and a psychobiological one, a neurochemical one, that causes a lot of wear and tear. And so just by doing that, and I've had struggled to do that many times when I've been angry at Tracy at night. And as soon as I do what we said, my anger drops immediately and I can sleep. Yay. So doing these things serve a purpose. They're hard to do, but it wouldn't be worth anything if it weren't hard to do. If one of us is in distress, the other one drops what they're doing and ministers to that person. That's the spirit of this thing. And it pays out for the inconvenience because we both get what most people will never get: attention, care, consideration, devotion. That is golden as long as it goes in both directions. And we agree that this must happen regardless. That's a good life.
That's amazing. So what you're describing, I think of this as a coordination over time of individual sheets of perhaps tissue paper. Seems very slim. And each time you do it, it helps, but it seems like it's over time, the collective, it pays back with compounded interest.
Absolutely. It is more than you can imagine. You start to earn love. You start to earn respect, admiration, appreciation, but you have to put the behaviors there. Otherwise, it won't be there. So if you're drifting and you're not being affectionate with each other, romantic with each other, and you're not feeling that way, it's because you're not doing anything. Behavior wags the tail of feelings. And so no problem. Let's install that as a principle. That is something we're going to do, come hell or high water. Hey, now we feel it.
I've got a crazy thought. My son came back from his physics class and he said, Dad, did you know that if you fold a piece of paper, if you could, theoretically, 42 times, it would reach the moon? We can fold it up to 8 times, apparently, and maybe if it's super big, 9. But
I almost feel like a great title for a book would be 42 times. It's like, if you could do this 42 times, you go to the moon with your beloved. And I'm also thinking about the idea that it's apathy and indifference that we're worried about. Those are the opposite of love. We may hate our partners, but we are so committed to them, we find a way back.
Yeah.
What are some of your very favorite ways to come back, reconnect after the rift?
Well, make a principle that we have to come back within 30 minutes, regardless of how we feel. We're not going to litigate this. People make the mistake of litigating their fights over and over again. No, the past memory is only good for a few things. One is to delight in the happy memories and looking at your photo album, but to either make a repair if I harmed you, I will forever apologize, follow my sword. There's no statute of limitations on harm felt, perceived by the other. That's one. Two, we have to put something in place to keep it from happening again. And this is another thing that couples don't do. So those are the only two things that they're useful for. Know the difference, as Norman Lear said, between what's done and what's next. Because if you're not watching where you're going, you're always looking backwards, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to keep tripping over yourself. So like we do in the hospital postmortems, we don't blame a doctor. We say, how do we not kill another patient this way? We work the problem. We don't work on people. Partners need to work problems, not each other. That's war. So they have to solve problems. They're not trying to solve each other. That won't work. I have some other hacks for you, by the way.
I'm in.
If you want to recreate exciting love, like you did in the beginning, falling in love, there are ways to do this. The human primate is the only mammal that we know of that can have an amplification effect. In other words, by feeling something in close proximity to someone and sharing that feeling, we amplify the feeling tenfold. That could be negative. You're anxious. Now I'm anxious. Now we're really anxious. Or it could be positive. Oh, look at that beautiful sunrise. Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, it's great. And then we look at each other and then say, God, I'm so glad I'm with you. So we use a third thing for mana. We use the third thing for the union, for us to get high on. There's a presynaptic dopaminergic squirt in the brain every time we amplify. And if you know how to do that, that's how you keep the flame going on that end of the spectrum, exciting love. So you take anything that you're excited about, rather than tell your partner to enjoy the thing you're enjoying, which I have done many times, throw to them in the way they could use. For instance, there was this older couple. They were sitting at a poolside with their grandchildren and children, and he was reading a book and she was watching the kids. And she looked over him and she says, how can you just sit there reading the book when we've got all these kids out here? You're not enjoying the day. That, of course, is the opposite of what I'm talking about. Had she said, isn't this wonderful? You get to be here and relax and read your book, and I'm here watching the kids, and I love this. I love being with you so much. That would have caused an amplification effect that he could use. That would have been skillful. And so people can make use of this little hack throughout the day. And you can also do this when you're sick. And as soon as you feel good, hey, when you feel good, you feel on the top of the world. I'll call my wife and say, I love you so much. I'm going to take that moment of delight, of feeling good, and I'll throw it to her in a way she can use. And she does that with me too. And so this creates that feeling of falling in love again and again.
Okay, so blown away. Amplification, the 30-minute rule. The 30-minute rule I've never heard. So good. I've just never heard of that. Very easy to say. I'm guessing very hard to do when we're inflamed.
Yeah. By the way, coming back in 30 minutes, if you can only say, we're okay, that's good enough. Or simply both of you fall on your swords. You know what I did was wrong. That shouldn't have happened. I'm so very sorry. Full stop. Nothing else. No, because I did this, because you did that, because what about what you did? None of that. People have to learn the art of falling on one sword, which is a complete fold and acknowledging bad behavior. The other person is inclined to do the same. That takes care of it. There's nothing to litigate. And if there is something to fix, that's put forward as legislation. We're going to prevent this the next time by working together in a particular way. And I have ideas for that too.
But it sounds like it's incumbent upon the person who's feeling hurt to actually say what they need.
Well, it depends on when, though, they say it. When people are fighting, they're not themselves. They're in a hypothalamic state of fight or flight, and they can't think. So as soon as our blood pressure and heart rate go up to a certain degree, there's a brain change. We excrete something called glucocorticoids in the brain, and this changes the brain. It dampens down our executive function, which doesn't allow for extinction of the amygdala. So we are now totally into self-preservation. I couldn't give a damn about your interests. Therefore, you've lost me as someone who can be influenced. And that is why we get in loops. We're in automatic memory zone where we're dealing with pattern recognition and we're reacting quickly to what we perceive as threat. And because our survival instinct is so acute, it's very easy to trigger that. And now I am not listening. Now I'm not going to put myself in your shoes, and I don't trust anything you say. That is going to happen to everybody. And that is something beyond your control if you allow it to happen. And then you need to learn quick ways to disconnect the threat in your partner and return the safety, or you're going to walk away with nothing.
Amazing. You're describing so many things. I'm thinking about maybe the husband like me, who's really into the Golden State Warriors, particularly, Steph Curry and Steve Kerr. I just love these two people, the coach and the star player. And if I was to go on and on about what I saw, and my wife who has no interest in it, or she was to talk about something in which I have little to no interest, it's incumbent upon us to find a way to amplify, I'm guessing, our interest and find a way to meet them in their excitement, assuming, of course, it's not an ongoing, non-relational, nearly autistic version.
That's right.
I'm going to first talk about psilocybin. It's my understanding that awe hits the same neural receptors as psilocybin does. We become less self-conscious and more other conscious, which is great. So experiencing that sunrise together, experiencing something really, really moving. And then I'm thinking about something we know very, very little about. In polyamory, there's this term that called compersion, like taking joy in someone else's. And you were describing a third. A third is something, as you've taught me, anything that could come between the couple. And in this case, it was a book. The wife who could have said, damn it, you're reading a book and you're leaving me. Right. And you're leaving this experience and you're not sharing it with me. But instead, she took pleasure in his pleasure and said, sweetie, it's so great that you're doing this.
She used the moment of excitement and gratitude that she was feeling to throw it to him that he could use. She wasn't expecting him to use the object of her excitement. That would be a burden. I want you to come see what my computer does, Trace. No, she's tired of that. She doesn't care about what the computer does. I do. So that doesn't work. But I can take my excitement and throw it to her in a way she can use. God, I'm so happy I'm with you. Now we get the amplification effect. So I'm not expecting you to share the same excitement with the object I'm paying attention to. I'm going to take that excitement and throw it to you. This has been done so many times that now it's autonomic. I'll feel good about something and I'll want to text Trace or call out to her or phone her. And I'll feel the same way about my daughter. So this is an act. You start deliberately and then it becomes automatic.
So it's almost like you can do the actual content of the thing and share that with her. In some cases, like with the computer, from past experience that she's not going to be excited. So you can generate that excitement and say the rough equivalent, like let's say the opposite occurs. I drive home from work and some guy cuts me off and flips me off. And I'm pissed. And I come through the door just still fuming. I believe that's called a cognitive afterimage. I'm still fuming from something that happened moments ago. And my wife comes to hug me and I'm just like, I'm all hot and bothered. But the opposite, like I'm super excited about something that she's not excited about. And I can use that excitement and say, I'm so excited to see you.
The opposite is true too. Nature doesn't think in terms of positive or negative. It is. So there are features and bugs and everything in nature, right? So you would get an amplification effect of a positive feeling. Believe me, you also get an amplification effect of negative feelings. You come off as angry. Now you're pissing me off. We don't realize that we're psychobiologically attached. We're connected and we affect each other. That's the whole idea of a two-person psychological system. Anything I do affects you and it's going to affect me in return. There's no way around it. Therefore, I have to think differently. So I might come in feeling angry and I'd hug my wife and I'd say, So glad to be home. I really wanted to kill this.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. Like, how do you re-channel that energy? And you just said it so beautifully. Like, you come in fuming, pissing mad. And of course, the guy was driving a Hummer. How do you pull from that beautiful space of like, God, I'm so happy to see you. I really needed this hug. I'm kind of in a pissed mood. How do you pull from that when you're in that state?
First, you have to know that it's the right thing to do, the best thing to do for yourself and your partner. Anything else is just self-harming. So if I just continue because somebody threatened my life, which is what you're reacting to, fear, then rage at somebody trying to kill you, your brain doesn't know the difference. And so you're carrying that and you're still affected by that state. You're in that state. The only way I can get out of that state to think about it is to join with Tracy properly. That shifts my state. And then I can say what it is that happened without affecting her and affecting me. So knowing that goes a long way towards the why would you do this? Why would you do this? And then it's practice. And then it's self-reinforcing because it's just better that way. So you choose to do that because you've thought about it and you thought, okay, well, to stay in this state spoils the rest of my night and it spoils everyone around me. And no one wants to be around me. That's not good for me at all. There's no upside to that whatsoever. But I can still express my anger, my dismay, but shift my state first. And then I can talk about it because now I'm not affecting people and I'm not perseverating as I would be.
I love the idea that you talk about often in terms of co-regulation and trying to find a way to really tune the instrument together as a single unit. But how do we unilaterally bring ourselves back? Do I say the mantra that might be, my couplehood matters more than my anger at this moment? Or how do I find my way back to her if I'm in that state?
Well, I mean, if I'm in that state, I could say to Tracy, do you mind if I just bitch and moan for a second? Are you up for it? I get her permission first. I don't just come in and start ranting. That's rude. And that's a one-person system of I, me, my. I don't give a damn about you. You're just a receptacle for my vomiting. That's going to blow back on me. There's no way it won't. Anything I do to you is going to happen to me sooner or later. And so that's self-destructive. I want people to understand that anything I do to ruin the union is self-harming. Anything I do to hurt my partner is self-harming because guess what I'm going to get in return? So we can't decouple these things, state of mind. So therefore, we have to learn how to work with states and how to manipulate them. And one way is affection. One way is touch. A hug, especially belly to belly, is the quickest way to calm us down unless there's a problem with touch. Then next would be the eyes. But sustained touch does the trick always, except in those instances. And so if people would do that, greet each other with a belly-to-belly hug and sustain it, and then see how the rest of the day goes, night goes, you'll see that there's a big difference. This is a neurobiological trick.
So I was going to ask you, there's a lot of neuronal activity in our stomachs. And I'm wondering, can you speak more to what's under the hood? Why belly-to-belly?
Serotonin receptors, there are massive amounts in the gut. Also, the reason we go into a fetal position is to protect our gut. So this is an area of vulnerability. If we get hurt there, death or exposure. And so when we press there, just like people like weighted blankets, we start to calm down and that gives rise to feeling good. And I've tested this out so many times. And now I'm a true believer. If you're really in a bad mood, hug your person and sustain it until you feel better. And then you'll see a big difference. Again, our minds are not Disneyland. Our minds are not to be always trusted. They lie. Parts of our brain are yelling at us because they're doing their job, but we're not always supposed to listen to those parts. So we have to be guided by some other means, and that's an executive function that understands that the mind plays tricks on us. And then we have to do something in order to feel better, because if we just rely on being in our heads, we're not going to. We're going to loop and round and round, and we're going to obsess, and we're going to generate ourselves up. So this is just being smarter than the average ape.
So I love that idea. I'm thinking about two of my favorite axioms: feelings aren't facts, and don't believe everything you think. And then I'm also thinking about IFS, that internal thinking systems idea, that maybe we do listen to that part, but we don't take direction from that part. I wonder how you feel about that idea.
Any way you want to cut it, any way you want to do it. think about parts, work with parts. That before IFS was voice dialogue back in the day, Hal Stone. And then before that, Gestalt. Before that, Marino, psychodrama. So parts work has been around for a long time. And the reason it has is because it's effective. So you can do that. You can journal. One of the best things to calm yourself down is to talk to yourself out loud while making large muscle movements. So if you're really upset, you just walk vigorously and then talk to yourself aloud. Nowadays, people can't tell whether you're talking on the phone or not. So you probably look crazy. But you talk to yourself and confront yourself perhaps on what you're angry about. This will do two things. One, it'll create a witness state, which you need. You have to witness that you're watching a movie instead of just being in the movie. You have to witness that you're watching it so it loses its pull on you. And you want to be able to challenge your thoughts when they're becoming problematic. And one of the best ways to do that is to talk out loud. Writing, for me, is too slow. Some people love that. It's great. But whatever you can do to talk to yourself aloud, because everything else is silent running. If you don't say it aloud, the bubble doesn't burst. Just like you say it to your partner, I don't know why, but I'm just feeling really embarrassed about this part of my body, when you touch it. Oh, okay. Now I'm free of that thought because it's now public and it doesn't have a hold on me. And plus, now you know more about me. So whenever we declare things aloud, it gets us out of the trance of what we are.
It's almost like a petitional prayer of sorts. And you're just putting it out there and getting an ectomy of sorts, that you're taking it out of yourself.
Actually, it's the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It is the big executive that does the right thing when it's the hardest thing to do. We're turning that on by talking it, by saying it aloud, saying what's true. And that is a very cognitive part of the prefrontal executive. And that's why it's so effective.
And it serves as the witness to this.
It serves as the witness, yeah. I'm watching myself doing this.
This is amazing. Stan, is there anything I should have asked but haven't? These are so good.
Eye contact. If you have trouble with sustaining eye contact, do this. Your task is visually to watch and look for every single detail in the face that you can find as the other person is talking or not talking. You give yourself a task, an outward meditation. Your object of meditation visually is every and all details in your partner's face, or every and all shifts and changes in your partner's face. That will disconnect any self-awareness or self-consciousness because you're too busy looking outward. This is for people who are very shy, also socially anxious. Constantly relax your body as you pour your attention visually on details. Oh, the part is on the left, but he's now moving his head up and down slowly. Now his head is certainly to the left. I can't do anything but that. I can still hear what you're talking about, but I'm not tuned in the same way. And so I am free of that and I'm free of my self-talk because I can't do that and have self-talk at the same time. It's literally competing with the same brain areas.
Incredible.
These are hacks.
That is so unbelievably good.
And if you have an obsessive partner, this is what you're going to do. You're going to have them look at you, and close up, look into the eyes and hold them there. If you see their eyes move at all, say, stay with me, stay with me. Do that for a few minutes and the loop goes away because you can't use the areas of the brain that are being employed while keeping your eyes on each other and focused. You're using the other person as feedback. You're thinking again, stay with me. And that can go both ways. And that breaks the loop.
One of the things I love about you and your work is there's nothing more important, really, that gives a bigger return on investment of our energy than the quality of our relationships. And this is the whole enchilada. When we're on our deathbeds, this is what we think about. The love not given, the love received, all of that stuff.
Everything I'm describing is the human condition. It's not him or her. It's not whether you're young or old. It has nothing to do with your culture, your traumatic background. All human beings have the same troubles and the same problems in interacting, no matter where you are on the planet. And so this flattens the field, it takes away. And what we love to do is to otherize people that are not like us. And that's also part of the human condition as well. We're fundamentally racist species, otherizing, right? Warlike, xenophobic, selfish, self-centered, moody, fickle, opportunistic, don't forget that one, and easily influenced by groups. And so as long as you know that these things exist in our DNA, then the only way to fight them is to put in principles that override them. Otherwise, you'll just be the average human ape. And we know on a good day, that's nice. On a bad day, you may not want to be around us.
There's no free lunch out there.
Yeah.
And we think that there should be or is. That moment when we're in it, recognizing, I'm thinking even about one of the tenets of self-compassion is recognizing the universal nature of suffering. And that what we forget in that moment is that
Where everybody
others are suffering too in that moment, and having some love and compassion for them in the moment, that we are struggling with them.
Yes. And that requires actually the ability or the willingness to put ourselves in the other person's shoes fully. As therapists, we have to do that. Otherwise, we'll be fired. We're not representing them properly. So we have to put ourselves in their shoes, and partners have to do that as well, or they will fight. There are all sorts of things that lead us to fighting, and it's not rocket science. Anything that isn't a two-person psychological system will lead to fighting. If it's a two-person system, that is. A three-person system, then it's the same thing. It's a four-person system in poly, right? It's the same thing. So these are rules we've always had to play by because we're animals, and we're unreliable animals at that. So we have to find where we are reliable and where we can count on each other. And that's basically on everything I've been saying: organization, structure, hierarchy, legislation, deciding the rules of engagement ahead of time. Because once you go live, you're going to be an animal again if you're unprepared. That's everybody. That's me. That's everyone. I like to think if you're a human primate, you're an asshole. You just haven't caught me at the right time. So we are this way, and denying it puts us in peril. Acknowledging it and putting things in place to prevent us from doing things, that is smart.
I can't help myself. I have to ask you about thirds, what they are and how to manage them. So if you explain what thirds are to the listener and how we best manage them, because those are so important.
So in a dyadic system, thirds are anything outside of that orbit. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It just is. And so mismanagement of thirds occurs when I cloak something of mine or something that is taking my time, energy, my interests, and you are not invited. You can't see it. That is going to cause suspicion and insecurity and maybe even a sense of unfairness, because I'm cloaking something you have a right to see, or you feel you do. So if I do that, I'm courting jealousy. I'm courting suspicion. I'm courting all sorts of things. And also, if I have an alliance with someone and that alliance begins to make my partner a third wheel, I'm going to get a complaint. And I should, because as primary partners, we usually don't appreciate being demoted to secondary. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. Even if you didn't have that agreement, it's sort of implied in our species. So we handle thirds together. We make decisions together. We do all of these things so that there's nothing up our sleeve, nothing behind our back. You can rest assured that everything is out in the open. And we decide, we govern everyone and everything together, not simply by ourselves, unless it absolutely has no effect on the other person. But there are very few things that absolutely have no effect on the other person. And I'm not the one to decide that anyway. They are.
If this were a game of Family Feud, what are the most common thirds that you see?
Mothers, parents, stepchildren, children, exes, work, pornography, the game I was playing just before we got online. Always taking my time. My wife comes in and she goes, turn it off. It's competing with our time. And so, alcohol, drugs, it doesn't matter. Thinking of thirds is the best way of working, because this way as therapists, we don't have to concern ourselves with sex addiction or addiction writ large. It's a third. I don't have a problem with your drinking. Your partner does. So therefore, you got to deal with it. I couldn't care less. And that is really, I think, the way it should be. The two of you have to agree on things or there will be trouble. That's just the way it's going to work. Anything else will work.
The two of you have to agree.
Yes. Otherwise, you're betraying the trust of your partner. And that is not a good thing. That's hard to come back from. The free flow of information is another thing that secures a relationship. I tell you everything. Everything is open. Do I flinch when you go into my wallet? Yeah, I do. That's my wallet. What are you doing? But I override it with the idea, that's what I want. Everything's out in the open. It's fine. Doesn't mean I don't or go through my phone. But everything is out in the open, so we never, ever, ever have to even think that there's anything hidden. Now, what does that do to the nervous system? Well, you have to do it to know what it does, but
it relaxes it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm thinking like the idea of having no secrets from your partner.
No secrets.
It's just, I mean, carrying a secret, it's like having rocks in your shoe. It's terrible.
It is, yeah. There's so much more about that because your partner should be your confidant. Otherwise, what's the point? Why pay money to somebody when they're right next to you?
It's that feeling of walking around. It's just like always there in the background. So it's just the relaxation of knowing we're good, we're clean, I'm withholding nothing.
I'm just hearing your audience say, but what if you have somebody who doesn't tell you things, who doesn't tell you how they're feeling, or doesn't use you as a confidant? Well, you can get angry with them, but that won't work. You can say, hey, what do you think of this? Do you think it would be good for both of us to have this relationship be where we are fully ourselves and we don't have to hide anything? What do you think of that? Do you think you would like that? Let's say you. And you always go to where you would agree and where you are likely the same. And then you work your way down. You don't start at the bottom where you're going to disagree. And so you create an idea that gets another person on board. And now once they buy into the idea and you've given each other permission to enforce, it's going to be done.
It feels like each time we're trying to ping the other with a bid, saying, hey, let's agree on this. Do we agree on this? Do we agree on this? Would that be good? Would you like that? Without the smarminess, it's almost like being a good sales rep and saying, hey, would you like this? And hey, would you like that? And working your way down.
And you're getting yeses, right? Or I rang your doorbell. So, just a moment of your time. Would you like it if instead of hurting your back while vacuuming, you didn't have to bend over at all ever again? You'd probably say yes.
I'm already saying yes.
Well, would you like it if you could have your floors and your carpets taken care of, even if you are not home? Would you like that? And there's a reason why that's a tactic, is because it's the only way we ever get consensus. When you think about how this country, how do you get 13 colonies to agree on anything, let alone go to war? Screw you. Our colony, we're a country to ourselves. We don't need you. So how does one do that? Well, someone has to think big and find where all people will agree and where they are the same to get people on board. And then they work out the details. And that's how we've done it. And that's how partners need to do it.
I just love listening to you and talking with you. I'm going to ask my final miracle question. That is this. Stan, given where you are and what you've been thinking about, if you had the magical powers to confer upon all humanity one great insight or skill, what would that insight or skill be? And how do you imagine it would impact the individual? And since we're all connected, others around them, perhaps even society at large?
I would love people to understand the actual human condition, how we are actually wired, and stop using psychological, psychiatric, medical terms as a cudgel to hit each other over the head, which is a form of otherizing. You're different than me, therefore you're a narcissist. You're different than me, therefore you're codependent. You're different from me, therefore you're a borderline. You're different from me, right? And to start to see that we're all perfectly imperfect. We're all pain in the asses. We're all difficult. We're all disappointing. Get over it. Find a way to work with that. Annoying is normal. Threatening, you do not want. And that has to be taken off the table systematically until it no longer exists. No threat, no perception of threat. If everybody thought that way, we'd have a better world.
Wow. Amen to that, first of all. And I'm just so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful for you giving time, sharing your wisdom with my listeners.
You know the saying, the teacher needs to learn, teaches what they need to learn, right?
Yes, of course I do. And I'm sure you and I have both been wonderfully impacted by what we've learned in order to teach, et cetera, et cetera. It's made a very big difference. And that's a big part of what this podcast is all about. I come in as kind of a fusion of learner and teacher, and I know that you carry that mindset as well. Thank you again.
Adam, I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and give my best to your lovely wife.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe